You're standing in your kitchen at 6 p.m. on a Thursday. You're tired, work was long, and in your refrigerator right now, there's a container with leftover chicken from 2 nights ago. There's rice from Sunday. There's that spinach dish you cooked because you know you should be eating more greens. And your instinct is the same as probably 85% of households around the world. Reheat it, eat it, move on with your evening. Nothing about that feels wrong. It shouldn't. Reheating leftovers is one of the most practical, economical habits we have. Surveys from the USDA, the CDC, and consumer research groups across North America and Europe consistently show the same thing. Over 80% of households reheat food at least once a week. For many people, it's daily, it's normal, it's smart, and it's probably the exact moment when most people stop thinking about what's actually happening to that food. My name is Dr. William Parker. I've spent the last 18 years researching food chemistry and storage safety, working with nutrition programs and hospitals across 3 countries. And if there's one pattern I've noticed, it's this. People aren't careless about food safety. They're just uninformed about what actually matters. The difference is huge because here's what almost nobody tells you. Reheating food isn't just about temperature. It's not just about, is it hot enough to kill bacteria? That's only half the story. The other half is chemistry. And that's where things get interesting. Today I'm going to walk you through exactly 4 foods where the science on reheating is genuinely established. Not sensationalized, not designed to scare you. Real documented findings that your own doctor probably hasn't talked to you about because most physicians aren't trained in food chemistry. And more importantly, I'm going to give you simple, specific changes that take 0 extra time and work immediately. If you've ever wondered whether you're handling leftovers correctly, or if you've had a nagging feeling that maybe you're missing something, this video is for you. Stay with me through all 4 foods because the one that surprises people most isn't the one they expect. And the last one reveals a habit that almost everyone gets wrong without even realizing it. If this turns out to be useful, hit like and subscribe. This channel exists so you have a place to come back to for honest, science-based health information without the fear tactics. Now let's get into it. Before I show you the 4 foods, I need to give you one concept first, because without it, none of the rest will make complete sense. I call it the storage window. And once you understand this, you'll never look at your leftovers the same way again. Here's what most people get wrong about leftover safety. First, cooking food doesn't make it permanently safe. Cooking kills most of the active bacteria present at that moment. But the second that food starts cooling down, new problems can start forming. Bacteria that survived cooking or bacteria that land on the food afterward can begin multiplying. Separately, certain natural compounds in the food start reacting with the heat itself. Both things happen. Both matter. Second, your body's tolerance for these issues changes significantly with time. As we get older, stomach acid production gradually declines. That means fewer of the toxins or bacteria that make it into your stomach get neutralized before reaching your intestines. Immune response also slows down slightly but measurably. Your body's cleanup crew simply isn't as fast as it was at 25 or 35. This doesn't mean your body is failing you, it means the margin for error shrinks. And when the margin for error shrinks, storage habits matter more, not less. Third, and this is the one nobody talks about, some of the compounds that form in reheated foods aren't about bacteria at all. They're about pure chemistry. Certain molecules in food, when exposed to heat and time, create byproducts that your body has to process and clear out repeatedly, meal after meal. Over weeks and months, these small exposures add up in ways that single events never do. Food is cooked, it sits out a little too long or cools a little too slowly. In that window, bacteria that survived cooking start multiplying. Or separately, natural compounds in the food react with the residual heat. By the time you reheat that food, you're not just reheating dinner. You're reheating whatever chemical changes happened in between. What happens in the storage window matters just as much as what happens in the oven. Keep that framework in mind because every single food I'm about to show you comes back to this one idea. Food 1, rice. Let me tell you about Marcus. He's 67, and like millions of people, he had a Sunday routine. Cook a big batch of rice to last the week. He'd leave it on the counter to cool for a couple of hours, then put it in the fridge. He'd eaten rice this way for 40 years without a single problem. Then one Thursday, about 6 days after cooking that batch, he heated up a container for lunch. Within an hour, he was dealing with sharp stomach cramps, nausea, and fatigue he couldn't shake. He assumed it was a stomach bug going around, but when I walked through his storage routine with him, the pattern became obvious. Most people think that once rice is cooked, it's essentially sterile and safe indefinitely. That's not accurate. Raw rice can carry spores of a bacterium called Bacillus cereus. Here's the important part. Cooking kills the active bacteria, but these spores are built to withstand heat. That's literally what makes a spore a spore. It survives conditions that would destroy regular bacterial cells. So when cooked rice is left at room temperature, those surviving spores can germinate and multiply. And as they multiply, certain strains produce a toxin that isn't destroyed by reheating. This isn't theoretical. This is well documented in food safety literature. The UK's Food Standards Agency specifically flags rice left out for more than 1 or 2 hours as a recognized cause of food poisoning. It's so common with restaurant rice dishes that there's an informal name for it: fried rice syndrome. But here's what's important to understand. The danger isn't the reheating itself. It's how long the rice sat out before it was refrigerated. Specific steps. So here's exactly what to do. Step 1, cool cooked rice quickly. Ideally within 1 hour, never more than 2 hours on the counter. Step 2, refrigerate it in a shallow container, not a deep pot. This matters more than most people realize. A deep pot of rice cools slowly from the outside in, which means the center can sit in the danger zone far longer than you'd expect, even after the pot is technically in the fridge. Step 3, eat refrigerated rice within 3 to 4 days. After that, throw it out. Step 4, when you reheat it, make sure it's steaming hot all the way through, not just warm on the surface. If you're microwaving it, stir halfway through so heat distributes evenly instead of leaving cold spots. The common mistake. You know what the biggest mistake is? It's not the reheating step at all. It's leaving a full pot of rice on the stove to cool down first for several hours before putting it in the fridge. That single habit is responsible for more rice-related food poisoning than the actual reheating ever is. One small change, using a shallow container and refrigerating within an hour, eliminates 90% of the risk. Food 2, spinach and leafy greens. Now let me tell you about Patricia. She's 72 and she's health conscious. Every Sunday she makes a large spinach dish sautéed with garlic and olive oil and portions it out to reheat throughout the week. Sometimes she reheats the same container 2, even 3 times. Most people assume vegetables are the safe leftover, the one you definitely don't have to think about. That's not quite the full picture. Leafy greens like spinach are naturally high in nitrates. And here's what's important: nitrates on their own aren't harmful. They're found in many vegetables. We're actually encouraged to eat more of beets, celery, arugula. There's solid research showing dietary nitrates can support healthy blood pressure. The concern isn't the nitrates themselves, it's what happens after cooking, when that spinach sits at room temperature or gets reheated multiple times. Under those conditions, naturally occurring bacteria can convert some of those nitrates into nitrites. And nitrites can, under the right conditions, particularly high heat, and the presence of certain proteins, convert further into compounds called nitrosamines. And here's where it matters. Some nitrosamines are classified by the International Agency for Research on Cancer as probable or possible human carcinogens based on animal studies and population research. This isn't exaggerated. This is a genuinely documented chemical pathway, which is exactly why food safety agencies in several countries, the WHO, the UKFSA, and others, specifically advise against reheating spinach and similar greens more than once. The fix specific steps. So what do you actually do? Step 1. Cook the amount of leafy greens you plan to eat that day when possible. If you're going to eat spinach on Monday and Wednesday, cook smaller amounts on each of those days rather than one big batch. Step 2. If you do have leftovers, refrigerate them promptly within 2 hours of cooking. Step 3. Store them in a sealed container to limit further bacterial exposure. Step 4. When you reheat them, do it gently, at low heat, and try to reheat only once rather than repeatedly. Step 5, here's a game changer. If you know you're cooking a large batch and won't eat it all that day, portion it out and freeze individual servings instead of keeping the whole batch in the fridge to reheat over and over. Freezing essentially pauses that chemical clock. The common mistake. The most common mistake is treating a big batch of cooked greens like rice or soup, reheating small portions from the same container multiple times over a week. Each additional reheating cycle is another opportunity for that nitrate to nitrite to nitrosamine pathway to progress a little further. And here's the kicker. Spinach is one of the most nutrient-dense foods you can eat. Nobody should stop eating it because of this. It's about how you store and reheat it, not whether you eat it at all. Food 3. Chicken. Let me tell you about David. He's 68 and he likes his leftover chicken crispy. So when he reheats it, he uses a hot pan or puts it under the broiler until the edges brown up nicely. Sometimes he'll do the same piece of chicken more than once over a few days if he's stretching it out. Most people assume that if reheated chicken is steaming hot, it's automatically fine. From a bacterial safety standpoint, that's true. Heating chicken to 165 degrees Fahrenheit kills harmful bacteria like Salmonella and Campylobacter. But there's a separate issue worth knowing about. When meat, including chicken, is cooked at high temperatures, especially when it's grilled, broiled, pan-seared, or browned until the edges char, certain compounds form called heterocyclic amines and polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons. These compounds form through a chemical reaction between amino acids, sugars, and creatine in the meat when it's exposed to very high direct heat. The National Cancer Institute has studied these compounds. In animal studies, they've been linked to increased cancer risk, though the evidence in humans is still considered limited, and researchers continue studying it. Here's what matters for your leftovers. Repeated high-heat reheating, especially browning or crisping leftover chicken a second or third time, adds additional exposure on top of the original cooking method. You're essentially stacking one high-heat event on top of another on the exact same piece of food. The fix. Specific steps. So here's what to do instead. Step 1. When reheating chicken, use gentler methods when you can. A covered dish in a moderate oven, reheating in a sauce or broth, or using a microwave with a damp paper towel over the top to retain moisture. Step 2. Skip the recrisp. You don't need to brown it again. I know that sounds less appealing, but the taste difference is smaller than you think, and it matters more than most people realize. Step 3. Refrigerate chicken within 2 hours of cooking. Step 4. Use it within 3 to 4 days and reheat it just once to a safe internal temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit. The common mistake. The biggest mistake is treating the crispy reheat as a treat you give yourself every single time, when in reality that's the exact pattern that adds up over months and years, one brown edge at a time. It's not dramatic, it's incremental. And that's exactly why it matters. Within a few days of making this one change, reheating gently instead of re-crisping, most people stop thinking about it because it becomes automatic. Within a few weeks, it's just how you do it. Small, consistent, no willpower required. If you're on blood thinners or have any condition where diet interacts with your medication, always check with your doctor before making changes to how much meat or protein you're eating. This isn't medical advice, it's general education. Your physician knows your specific situation best. Food 4, eggs and ages. Now here's the one that changes the conversation entirely because it's the one almost nobody asks me about. And it's tied to one of the most consistently reproduced findings in food chemistry. The fourth food is eggs, but more specifically, this is really about a broader category called advanced glycation end products, or AGEs. Eggs are simply one of the clearest, most everyday examples. Here's the strongest research on this. Studies published in the Journal of the American Dietetic Association and other food chemistry research have shown that AGEs form when proteins or fats are exposed to high, dry heat, frying, roasting, grilling. And the concentration of these compounds increases substantially with each additional round of high heat cooking, in some cases multiplying several times over compared to a single gentle cooking method. Studies looking at chronic AGE exposure have linked higher dietary AGE intake to increased oxidative stress and inflammation markers in the body. Both of those are consistently associated with age-related conditions, including cardiovascular disease and, in some research, insulin resistance. Here's why most people never think about this one. They focus entirely on which foods might be bad and completely overlook how many times a food has been through high heat. Someone can eat a perfectly healthy fried egg for breakfast, then reheat it later in a hot pan to freshen it up. You've essentially doubled that high heat AGE exposure on food that didn't need to be reheated in the first place. It's not the egg that's the problem. It's the number of times that egg has been exposed to a hot, dry pan. The fix: specific steps. You don't need to eliminate eggs or fried foods entirely. That would be an overcorrection the evidence doesn't support. Eggs remain one of the more nutrient-dense, affordable protein sources available, particularly important for older adults who need more protein, not less. Here's what the evidence actually supports. Step 1. When you're cooking eggs, gentler methods like poaching, soft boiling, or low-heat scrambling produce meaningfully fewer AGEs than frying or high-heat searing. Step 2. If you do have a leftover egg dish, reheat it gently. Low heat covered just until warm rather than back in a hot, dry pan. Step 3. That one substitution, low heat instead of high heat on the reheat, is the single biggest lever you have here. It costs nothing in taste or convenience, and it applies to way more than just eggs. It's really the same principle across every food on today's list. The reheating method matters as much as the original cooking method. Safety checklist. Before I give you your 30-day challenge, I want to leave you with something practical you can actually use. I call it the leftover safety checklist. 5 questions you can ask yourself, or even bring up with your doctor or dietitian at your next appointment. Question 1. How long did this food sit out before I refrigerated it? Question 2. Am I reheating this for the first time or the second or third time? Question 3. Is this a high nitrate vegetable, and if so, have I already reheated it once? Question 4. Am I reheating this gently, or am I recrisping and bringing it to high heat? Question 5. Has it been more than 3 to 4 days since I cooked this? Any good physician or dietitian will welcome these questions without hesitation, and if they brush them off, that tells you something important too. 30-day challenge and closing. Here's your challenge for the next 30 days. Pick just one habit from today. Cooling rice faster. Reheating greens only once. Using gentler reheating methods for chicken. Switching from high heat to low heat reheating for eggs. Apply that one habit consistently every single day for 30 days. That's it. You don't need to overhaul your entire kitchen routine overnight. You don't need to be perfect. Write down which habit you're focusing on today. Check back in with yourself in 30 days. You'll be surprised by the difference. Small changes, consistent application, measurable results. There's a fundamental difference between healthcare that reacts to problems after they show up and healthcare that quietly prevents them in the first place. After a certain age, that distinction matters more than most people realize. The best guidance I've ever given isn't about dramatic changes. It's about small, boring, consistent habits that nobody notices except your body over time. Nobody writes a book about cooling rice faster or reheating spinach only once. But over nearly 2 decades, I've watched those unglamorous habits do more for people's long-term health than almost anything else I could recommend. You've probably been told that food safety is just common sense, something you either know or you don't. That's not entirely true. The science behind storage windows, nitrate conversion, and heat-related compounds has evolved significantly. And most of us were never taught any of it in school or by our parents or anywhere else. You're not doing anything wrong by learning this now. You have every right to understand what's actually happening on your plate and to make small, informed adjustments instead of guessing. Getting older doesn't mean resigning yourself to whatever habits you picked up decades ago. It means having the option to update them whenever you're ready. This isn't medical advice, and it's not a replacement for guidance from your own doctor or a registered dietitian, especially if you have specific health conditions or take medications that affect your diet. But I hope it's useful, practical information you can start using in your kitchen today with foods you're probably already eating this week. If this gave you something worth knowing, hit subscribe. That's exactly what this channel is built for: calm, honest, science-based guidance without extremes. Don't forget, I've put together a free food storage reference guide linked in the description. It maps out safe storage and reheating guidelines for the foods people ask me about most. It's free. It's there if you want it to keep on your fridge or tucked in a drawer where you'll actually see it. And one more thing, drop a comment and let me know which habit you're going to focus on for your 30-day challenge. I read every comment and I'd love to hear which one resonated with you most. I'll see you in the next one.